Technology is progressing by the minute. AI can create anything, you can speak to your fridge, you can charge your doorbell through your PS5. But what about in football? Is technology ruining the game? We'll start with the main talking point, VAR. It's been one of the most polarising introductions to football ever, really. It's a flawed idea and some question the point of it anyway. It's definitely something we thought we needed and then we realised we definitely didn't. It got introduced into the Premier League in the 2019-2020 season, and it was so bad that everyone in the world decided to just lock down the country instead of having to watch it. For argument's sake, it should work, shouldn't it? Hawkeye works in tennis, basketball uses a lot of video referees in their game, so why shouldn't it work in football? Well, probably the main reason is that the decision should be objective. A video should be able to see if a player is onside or if it's offside, but currently it seems like the decisions are still subjective. Not one fan in the world can tell you exactly what the offside rule is nowadays, because it's gone from your elbow, it's gone from your toe, it's gone from your shoulder. How can it be objective if even the referees don't know exactly what the rules are? And also with Hawkeye, it's a video system where imperatively it shows if the ball is in or out. But as we all know, in the Premier League, the referees are a bit inadequate anyway, and now you have blokes drawing lines on Microsoft Word to see if Erling Haaland is offside or if he's onside. It's a bit of a chicken and egg scenario because it feels like we're constantly changing the laws of the game and the technology is trying to keep up with that. But the technology is never going to be correct if the laws of the game are going to keep on changing. For example, recently where Brighton knocked Newcastle out of the FA Cup, it was disallowed because someone's shoulder was offside. And it's the whole debate of what is football coming to when if your shoulder is offside, then that means you're offside. The only person in my lifetime I think who scored with a shoulder is Mario Balotelli. The automated offsides are the way to go, aren't they? People still disagree and they just won't like VAR even if it's perfect because it takes away from the game, and that's completely fair enough. As we saw in the Euros, it worked pretty much without a hitch. But in my opinion, this is one of the issues because the Premier League currently doesn't have the technology to consistently do that. If you don't have the technology, then just don't do it at all until you have the best technology, because the Premier League is probably the best league in the world still, yet it still feels like the referees aren't good enough and now the technology isn't good enough. And it's so tough with VAR because when it's brilliant, it gets no praise, and when it's terrible, it's on every news outlet straight away. Everyone's moaning about it. But unfortunately, that's just how football is. When a referee is brilliant, it doesn't really praise him. But when a referee's terrible, it will get all the criticism in the world. However, after a long period of time, like we saw in the Euros, no one was going, it's brilliant every single game. But after it, you go, yeah, that was a really good use of VAR. The way it is 100% ruining the game, and again, this isn't the technology itself, it's the people who are using it, is the slow motion when seeing if it's a red card or not. And this is just completely ridiculous. I don't understand why this is still a thing. One recently was Zabani against Wolves. He got a straight red for going over the ball and it was a studs up tackle against one of the Wolves players. Again, you can argue it's a sending off, it isn't. I personally don't think it is, but like I say, it's game of opinions. However, if you slow it down and you only use one camera angle, how on earth is that objective? It feels like the people in charge have never played football before, because when they are making these tackles, they're in the heat of a game, there's no malicious intent, and it feels like they're trying to find a way to send these players off. Whereas in my opinion, they should try to find a way to keep all the players on the pitch. They need to try and find a way to make sure every offside goal is giving the advantage to the attacker, because football's supposed to be entertaining. And the constant camera angles, Everton versus Man United, the last minute, Ashley Young got tugged by Matthijs de Ligt. There was multiple camera angles of Matthijs de Ligt pulling Ashley Young's shirt. However, for some random reason, VAR focused on the one camera angle where you couldn't see it. So therefore, the penalty was not given, and Everton lost 3 points really. Why is it when they're using VAR, they only seem to look at one replay? I was watching Ali McCoy's commentate on it, and we all saw it at home. It was a pull on the shirt. However, they just decided to completely disregard that one and use a different one. Watch tackles in real time with all the angles, and then they'll get the best decisions. It doesn't seem to be that hard, and again, it doesn't seem to be the technology's fault. It seems to be the people in charge of the technology. You can definitely see the enjoyment of the lower leagues without VAR at the moment. The FA Cup doesn't have VAR at the moment. And yes, you'll get decisions like a Harry Maguire against Leicester. He scored the winning goal and it was definitely offside, but it was missed. So in a way, they'll never win because I'm sure Leicester fans feel absolutely robbed and they'll be like, why wasn't VAR in the FA Cup? But it's that saying that's been around since it's come into the game, and it's that they're trying to make an imperfect game perfect, and it's never going to work. I can never see it really being taken out of football because I think there's too much money that's been invested into it, and also compared to other countries, I think there's an arrogance with English football. Just to follow off VAR, the next innovation, I mean, it might be 10-15 years, I think automated linesmen, or at least linesmen that aren't able to give offside, because surely at some point the big teams will get a camera going up and down the pitch following the last defender, and if any player goes past the last defender, then they're offside. Is that needed? Absolutely not, but I can see it going that way in the future. Let's move off VAR because you can go on and on about that. Let's talk about some great innovation within football, and that is goal line technology. Surely that is the best piece of tech that's been brought into football. 21st century, just ever, really? Rarely. And I mean, the only one off the top of my head was when Aston Villa got saved from relegation due to a goal line technology malfunction. Anything other than that, I can't think of anything that's been poor through goal line technology. It's been 11 years since its introduction in England, and 1 out of, over 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 goals? I don't think it's a bad return, to be honest. There's no talk of it ruining the game, there's no post-game analysis on it. It's a job done within, 5 seconds, no arguments from the players, none from the managers, and we can just move on. And that's the thing, football isn't meant to be a stop-start game. Goal line technology has become brilliant because it's so quick, and you can tell that it's brilliant because who questions it? You don't see players sprinting up to a referee after he's made his decision. If they can match the speed of VAR, even within the space of a minute, I think they'll be onto something massive. Cameras are next, and yeah, they've been around since, the first televised football game, and no, they're not ruining football because we like to watch it from home. People will argue, I mean, this is a ridiculous argument, that televised football is taken away from live football, but let's just completely disregard that because we all like watching football on TV. I think where it's becoming better and better are the 8K cameras coming in at the moment. La Liga seem to be the league that are pushing this out so much currently, but you'll see before a game, you'll see on highlights, you'll see after a game, it's all 8K cameras, and it literally makes you feel like you're on the touchline watching Atletico Madrid celebrate a goal. It's slowly but surely coming into the Premier League. I think we saw it with Man City and Liverpool. It's just enhancing the experience for people who watch it from home, and like I say, there's always the argument, well, it will just push further people to watch it from home. In my opinion, people go to the games, they'll go to the games, won't they? And people who watch it from home, they'll watch it from home. An 8K camera isn't going to change that. However, it will enhance it for the people who are watching it from home. I do think England really need to catch up. And like I say, La Liga are so much further ahead than us at the moment. It's the on-pitch graphics that they'll use, the stats, everything. It just makes it look, it's just more immersive, isn't it? I do think technology in England, I don't know if they just can't be bothered because they know all of us are going to watch the football regardless, but there's just no innovation with them. I think especially Sky, they are so boring, and to be honest, I can't wait till they lose the rights of the Premier League, and I hope it goes over to Amazon Prime and TNT. Sky are just terrible, aren't they? Even the post-game analysis, it feels like they're still doing what they did 10, 15 years ago. There seems to be this acceptance with post-match analysis, especially with Sky Sports, that a lot of people just don't want to watch it regardless. Make people want to watch it. You have all the technology at your disposal. It is interesting with the piracy debate going on at the moment. Sky and DAZN bosses have come out and said that they might collapse if this continues, and what I'm hoping this does is that it makes them evolve instead of just going, well, everyone's just a criminal nowadays, aren't they? I'm hoping it makes DAZN, Sky, TNT, I think TNT are fairly good, and like I say, I think Amazon are pretty good. Just evolve. Look what La Liga are doing. La Liga are fantastic. They're becoming pioneers in their own right. Just this arrogance with English football that it has to be the same as it was in the 80s and the 90s, because any change is seen as modernising the game and making it less about the fan. What we're seeing in America, I think, is probably going to be like the new metaverse. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's where fans are like in a bar and the whole screen is taken up by the game, and it looks like you're sitting watching in the Stretford End or you're sitting in the Cop at Anfield. This to me is probably for people that will never be able to go to a game that they want to. For me, I'd much rather either go to the game or watch it with the best camera angles on the main broadcasters. Because we've all done it where you go on the VR things and you can kind of move your view about, and it's not, but it is kind of like you're watching the game from the stands. It's not the same, is it? Because in the stands, you get the entire atmosphere, don't you? You don't get that in a bar. But like I say, if you never have a chance to go to Stamford Bridge, then it might be the second best thing. We'll finish with cameras on two things. The spider cam, which is great. That just goes above the stadium and it gives you a great bird's eye view. Just anything more really to make you feel immersed in the game. And the second one is something that I'd like to see more, and that is GoPros. I've said it so many times that we saw it in the Premier League tournament in America the year before last, and it was fantastic because we saw Yuri Tielemans and I believe we saw Joe Linton. It was just interesting to see how they played football. Don't get me wrong, you don't need to be doing it all the time because it just becomes a gimmick, it becomes unnecessary. But it'd be so interesting for a meaningless game if you got to April or May, two mid-table sides, stick a camera on Eberechi Eze, and you can see the way he dribbles at Selhurst Park, and it'd be so entertaining to see. But let's move on to stats. And again, it's a very divisive thing in football. But what about the technology that provides the stats? Because they don't just come out of thin air, do they? Most of these are wearables, whether that's in the boots, in the shin pads, a lot of people wear it on the chest, even in the football sometimes. For example, companies like Adidas have created smart technology in their footballs to track the spin, the trajectory, the speed, and anything really to give teams an advantage. I'm sure they're going to love. I remember when this came out and I did think it was just a bit of a gimmick really, because how many players are actually going to care? I mean, how many footballers even know what trajectory means, never mind care what it does? Electronic vests, I think, can help. They can track heart rate, they can track intensity, and nowadays with the game going so much more athletic, it probably is a good thing to track the heart rate of the players, how quick they're running, the distances that they're running. But even with clubs using these stats, I think it is also good for, the viewer at home really, isn't it? Because a lot of these are used for the broadcasters to present to us. And I think that's a good thing because people don't like XG, they don't like the momentum graphs, they don't like the field. I still don't know what field tilt is, but to me it's just more and more info that you can do whatever you want with. XG doesn't mean anything to you if you don't let it mean anything for you, because it doesn't affect a game at all. But from literally a basic point of view, it just shows if a player had good chances and if they converted those chances. But I think the downside where it could kill football is that the stats and the technology could kill individualism, because at the end of the day, players, a lot of them just get it from the pure ability. They work so hard, but I do think some players just have a knack for being a professional footballer. So when they sit down and they have to go, no, you work better if you do 10 sprints to the left rather than the right. If you're on the final third, you have to work 10% harder because your heart rate's a bit lower. That surely can get into a player's head sometimes. And I'm not saying analysis is a bad thing, because it's a great thing. Looking back on your performances and seeing how you can do better, it's a brilliant thing. But at the end of the day, you can overdo it, can't you? In terms of recovery, I think technology has brought so many good things in, because players are playing so much more nowadays. We all know that injuries are absolutely sky high, so they need all the help they can get. Underwater treadmills, for example, are a great thing to help players not only just, get running again and get active again after they've been injured, but I'm sure from a mental point of view, it's really good just to get moving again, because if you play football, when you get injured, it's just boring, it's miserable. You see all your mates, you see all your teammates play. There's nothing you can do about it. Whereas if you feel like you are progressing, even if you are underwater running, it feels like you are making some progress. The compression therapy things that you can put over your legs, again, you'll see so many footballers wearing those. I've never really used them. Apparently they're great for recovery after a game. But just really anything that will help a player just get back on the field, because it's become so competitive nowadays. And it was in the 2000s where someone like a Sam Allardyce was praised for bringing sports science into Bolton. Nowadays, every club up and down the Football League has everything at the disposal, so it's so competitive that they need an edge on each other. Hyperbaric chambers are another thing that you'll see constantly of players going in. It looks like they're coming out of dry ice, and that helps with their muscle recovery. But in conclusion, I think obviously technology is progressing football, isn't it? VAR technically is progressing football, but when we talk about VAR, I also think it's killing the spirit of football. I don't think it's actually killing the game, but the way fans want the players to celebrate, the way fans like to talk about the game. You never want to go to the pub and discuss VAR decision, do you? It just seems so weird and forced. Likewise with stats, again, it is progressing the game, and I think it actually is important to the game. However, you can overdo it, and if you overdo it, then again, it takes away some of the humility of football. It takes away some of the passion, the soul of football. But it always feels like a matter of choice and opinion. Some people want it to be like in the 70s, where they weren't even able to go in ice baths. They just went out, half time, they had a 10-pack of cigs, and then after the game, they went out on the beers. Fair enough, it's not like that anymore, and I think people just have to get over it. However, I can also see the point of view where people don't want it just to become a robot sport, do they? Goal line technology is an example of a tiny thing that was added into the sport which made a huge difference. But VAR still feels like it's being trialled out, and we're all the ones that have to suffer it, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, it's here to stay, and we're going to have so much more technology. It'll be interesting to see what AI does with football. I don't know what it will do, but I'm sure something will come eventually. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you leave a like on the video, that'd be great. Subscribe to the channel, that'd be brilliant. Well, thanks for watching.